What's the most disturbing secret you've been told? Dad introduced me to his girlfriend when I was 15 years old. Now, don't tell your mama. Girl I knew had just gotten fired from her job and was planning on jumping off a bridge. The job meant everything to her. I talked to her over 4 hours on the phone pleading with her, and she eventually decided not to jump, so she went home and shot herself instead. My aunt, who I don't speak to anymore, was talking to me about my granddad who died when I was 2, saying how he loved taking me to the park and hanging out with me and stuff like that when she was babysitting me. My mom then explained to me a few years later that he was a pedophile and had done stuff to all of his kids and my aunt's daughter, but that he wasn't ever allowed near me. So basically, my aunt used to let my granddad, who was a pedophile, hang out and let me stay with him for a day without my parents ever knowing. Edit. I just wanted to add on and answer some questions. Asterisk. I haven't told my mom, but I've debated it sometimes. I realized that she had a fear that something like she'd experienced would happen to me, and she said that it would destroy her, because she said that she would basically become her mother by letting it happen without her knowing. Asterisk. I don't really know for sure why my aunt allowed it to happen, but she told me that she suffered from MPD and sees a therapist because of what happened to her. But when she moved out, she forced herself to forget, I guess, and denied what my mom and another aunt were saying. My mom told me that she thinks that she still loved their dad and kept him in her life was because she thought that he loved her because of what he'd done. Bit creepy though. Asterisk. I don't know if anything ever happened to me because I was too young to remember between being born and 2 years old, and I don't know how I'd know if I want to know. I've been through lots slightly similar situations, basically sexual assault, and that's already messed me up mentally quite a bit, so I don't know if I found out that something actually did happen. Thanks guys for the comments. I didn't actually think that anyone would actually read it, let alone comment. I've never spoken to anyone about what happened / could have happened, and I think I've relieved the tension slightly that it's caused me, but I'm confident now that my grandmother and aunt are batshit fucking crazy. Did you tell your mom your aunt allowed this? A coworker told me her second child wasn't her husband's. Did not need that information. In 1994, a now retired judge told me he and 2 childhood friends were responsible for the accidental death of a classmate down by a creek where they were playing one day. He had pretty much kept it to himself for a lifetime. My classmate in high school, I thought he was pretty weird but also a nice guy. Turned out he's bipolar and he manages it with medication, but one time he was off it, and he lost control in an argument with his little brother. He ended up beating the living crap out of the poor kid. Once he regained his senses and realized what he did, he tried to kill himself. I'm not sure how, he didn't specify. His dad was also an abusive drunk douchebag who occasionally beat him up. He told the story pretty calmly. I really hope he's doing much better now. I found it out myself. My immediate older sister is cheating on her husband with my oldest sister's husband. Both the couple seem to be in a happy and healthy marriage with kids. WTF. Edit. Sorry for keeping you guys hanging. Now to answer your questions. No, they do not know that I know, and yes, we do see them on family occasions. My cheating sister is always on her phone, doesn't attend late-night family meetings between cousins, and one night I saw her chatting. It was really late, so next day I check her phone. I wish I didn't, and bam, all of romantic and intimate texts. Seems like they masturbate on video calls and exchange pictures and videos. Can't say for sure if they have slept yet, but my sister is very eager to. I just told my younger brother, and my fiancé only was almost about to spill it out to my mom, but didn't wanna ruin 2 families. Also, my sister acts like a saint in front of us. Also, the cheating brother-in-law is kinda asshole to us, so me, my brother and my cousins don't like him. Cheating sister pretends to dislike him in front of us, but the chat says otherwise. A guy I hooked up with in college had a breakdown when we were blackout drunk and essentially admitted to killing a guy who had taken advantage of his little sister and burying the body. He was a total wiener of a guy who was always trying to hype himself up and exaggerate to be a bigger, better, manlier person, so I didn't think much of it at the time. The timing would have made him a teenager and the man a full-fledged adult. It just felt like another bullshit story he was always telling, but sometimes I think back and wonder if there's any truth to it. My friend was telling me about how jealous she was of her boyfriend spending time with one of his female cousins instead of her. Me? I mean, that's his family though. Don't you think you're being a bit psycho getting jealous of him spending time with his own cousin her? Well, he fucked his other one. Me? I'm sorry, what? Turns out, he'd lost his virginity to a different female cousin when they were teenagers. Asterisk. Sweet Home Alabama intensifies. Asterisk. My father had 6 children from 4 different women. One he knocked up when he was married to his first wife. He put the child up for adoption in secret so his wife wouldn't know. The only people who knew were his mom and dad and the mother of the child's family. He lied to his current wife about the child when his second wife found the papers in his office while they were going through a divorce. 30 years later, 23 and reunited all, and he found out quickly this secret wasn't really so secret. Everyone in the family knew and just didn't say anything. The child put up for adoption was me. What really sucks for him is if he had just been open about it, it may have saved him many years of pain. I've told the story on here before, but a girl I worked with once told me about her first love. They dated for a while, fell madly in love and lost their virginities to each other. Her family situation was weird. Her parents weren't married, but when her dad was in town, her parents were a couple, and when he wasn't, they weren't. Well, one of the times that he was in town, she introduced him to her boyfriend. They got along and got to talking, and he asked about the kid's family. After the kid went home, her dad told her she couldn't see him anymore. Turns out he was the kid's father. She'd unknowingly fallen in love with and lost her virginity to her half-brother. And yes, I know this also happened on an episode of House. I was told this story back in '99 before that show was a thing. My wife told me that one of her cousins is actually a baby bought from another family member who was too young to keep the baby. My dad was introduced to and taught how to do various drugs by his dad. They once got really high together and had sex. My mom told me this because I had just came out to my dad as gay and he didn't respond in the way I had hoped. Happy Father's Day. This might be the single most fucked up thing I've ever seen on Reddit. JFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. When I was about 10 years old, my mom told me that when she was 12 years old, she was in bed at night. She lived in Puerto Rico. She heard her mom and dad arguing in the kitchen. Her dad might have been drunk. I don't recall if my mom said she heard her mom screaming and then go silent. Her dad had stabbed her mom to death. He went to prison. My mom and her siblings got adopted out to other families. I always thought my aunt, who suffers from a bit of depression and anxiety, never had children because of depression and anxiety. However, I managed to piece some things together. I was with her last month and we were talking about life and catching up. I'm finally an adult, so we talked more about life in general, got onto the topic of religion. She had later revealed to me that she was gang raped by a few Catholic boys at her church, which is why she left religion. I later asked my mother, her sister, about it, and I come to find out a really morbid story. It's a long story, but I will tell Doctor it. My aunt was raped at night in a park. She was pregnant and sent off to another state by my grandparents for her senior year of high school. She had the child, but a family adopted the child. My aunt returned to her home state. 6 years later, my mom was sitting at the bar my aunt was bartending at. Noticed my aunt was off. My aunt received a letter from the adopted child's family notifying her that her child was killed in a car accident that day. Only my mother, my aunt, and my grandparents were aware of this, as they kept it under the radar from the entire family. Now I know and honestly wish I hadn't. I always thought my aunt was moody, but now I can understand why. I wish I could do something for her. Edit. This was over 30 years ago, which is why I say I wish I could do something for her. She didn't tell me details past the rape story. My mother told me the rest. So clearly she has been holding this in for almost her entire life and doesn't want people to know. I live extremely far away from my aunt as well. It's not like I can just show up at her doorstep. This is something where I told myself to tread lightly. I see her once every few years. While I am close with her, I'm in no position to help with her grievance process other than to see her every couple of years. I lost 2 of my good friends from high school, and I'd prefer to never be asked about it because I'd accepted the way I handled those losses years later. Obviously, if she was having life-threatening issues over this, I would intervene, but my aunt is stable. Thank you for your concerns, everyone. I wish she could see the comments and support, but I think I'd be opening a can of worms that would cause a family meltdown. Some things are better left unsaid and untouched. She does not know that I know. This girl I worked with over the summer told me how she burned down her high school, and we worked at a summer camp. None of the parents knew the girl watching their kids was a fucking arsonist. My cousin had her first daughter with an old friend from high school after a one-night stand. Turns out he is married and doesn't want the wife to know. My newest baby cousin is now about 3, I believe. No idea if his wife ever found out, but I'm the only one my cousin told. This is like the anti-Father's Day post. That my best friend's mom was gang raped / serially raped after being gambled as a commodity in a poker game by her husband, my friend's dad. I felt disturbed for a long while after hearing it, still am. I have a female friend who got paid $15K to send abusive texts, stamp on some 60-year-old dude's balls and fuck him in the ass with the strip on. $15K is $15K. As a young teenager, one of my closest female friend was raped by her cousin who was the same age as her, multiple times over the course of 3 years. Eventually her father found out about this and a trial happened. That cousin ended up having nothing much more than a fine and kind of a warning: we watch over you now. This guy is now on the run to compete in the next Olympic Games, and my friend is fucking broken from the inside and barely able to trust males. I'm one of the few persons outside of the family who knows. My high school sweetheart told me he had sex with his older half-sister several times and that it was the most thrilling thing he's ever done. This was after he repeatedly asked me to roleplay that I was his sister, and I grew suspicious and made jokes that he must have a crush on his half-sister. Boy, was I onto something. Bonus secret: I dated a mutual friend years later and he offhandedly told me he also slept with that guy's sister, and I noped out so quick. Edit: I originally used the word stepsister instead of half-sister because I'm dumb and didn't know the difference. Totally different story when it's actual blood siblings. I felt I needed to correct it. Not as crazy as others, but I found out that my dad is actually my stepdad, and my real dad left immediately after I was born. 18 years and still haven't met the guy. Good friend of mine told me his father molested his sister. I think I was more shocked he didn't share this sooner. It wasn't until he had kids that it all came out. Family secrets are dark. *edit secrets. Not really a secret, but it was something told to me once and then never discussed again. Close family friend had blocked some memories from her childhood during which her grandfather did horrible things to her and her brother. She was fighting brain cancer as an adult and attributed her sickness in part to the repressed memories. I was told what happened to her with details and never shared it with anyone else. Use your imagination. It's worse than that. She died from cancer. People like that grandfather should be castrated and thrown to the wolves. Chicago detective told me how they would wrap a dry cleaner bag over someone's face to get them to sign a confession. A coworker had been friends with my roommates at one point. The guy who owned the house got his sister drunk one night after a basketball game. The team was over celebrating a big win. The story goes that he turned his wasted sister over to the team who ran a train on her. This was supposedly done so they would like him. Feel like the police might have an opinion on this one. When I was 12, my parents sent my older brother and I to go visit our aunt during summer break. One day out of the blue, my aunt pulls me aside and tells me that my dad had a family before us, but that his wife and baby had died during childbirth. She then told me not to tell anyone what she'd told me. It's been 10 years since then and I sometimes still think about what might have possessed her to tell a 12-year-old kid something like that. I still haven't told my mom or dad about it because I have no idea how to ask / if it's even my right to ask, but sometimes I have this weird feeling that I imagined the whole thing or that my aunt could have lied to me about the whole thing. My homies girl randomly told me her father used to rape her. That was the moment I realized the saying, "They're your parents, they love you," is something I can't say to everyone, which was something I'd say a lot tbh. My sister-in-law doesn't think her third child, 5 years old, is her husband's. They were broken up around the date of conception. The husband has brown hair, brown eyes, same with their first 2 children. The third, the questionable one, has blonde hair, blue eyes. It's been a running joke so far. I honestly don't think the husband cares to know the truth at this point. The fucked up part, Sil has been caught texting other men. I think she's stopped now, but she used to chat with her brother's my husband friend who has blonde hair and blue eyes. Same rectangular head shape as the third kid. He is around 65 and questionable kid is huge for his age. The other fucked up part, my mother-in-law says she knows who the father is and it's not my husband's friend. It's whatever now, LMAO.